Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, the U.S. news media mourn the passing of the Clinton candidacy and the death of a great story.
The biggest story.
In the world, in the universe, the biggest American political story in modern times.
Indian soap operas are proving to be too much for the Afghan authorities. They're being forced off the air. Myanmar cracking down on satellite dishes and DVDs after the cyclone. And the one-minute version of America's 16-month-long political drama.
Obama wins Alabama, Alaska, Colorado, Connecticut, and Utah.
Welcome back. Here's a frightening thought. Now that the battle between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton is over, the real race for the White House begins. And we all have another 6 months of that to look forward to. The saturation coverage of the fight for the Democratic nomination has already overshadowed all kinds of other news stories, pushing them out of the headlines and off the airwaves. So what happens now? That's our starting point this week. The media, how they will deal with the next phase of the U.S. presidential campaign, and what that means for other stories, important news stories that we're not hearing enough about.
Almost inevitable now that Hillary Clinton will be the nominee.
To paraphrase sort of a well-known quotation, never in the field of political conflict
Hillary's pretty much seems to have it locked up.
have so many apologies been owed by so many pundits
At this point, Hillary's, she's got it in the bag.
for being right about so few things in front of so many viewers. Starting from the beginning, the Obama-Clinton story was not the American media's finest hour.
She's a meteor hurtling through space towards the White House, John. Get ready. Start right now, President Clinton.
She will crush Barack Obama. Barack, just sit it out. It's going to be ugly. I promise you. You heard it here first.
She will be the nominee.
I think most people don't take to that message very well. The idea of something being inevitable and not having a choice in the matter. Why bother going through the whole race in the campaign if something is going to be inevitable?
She was the best known, the best funded candidate, and so I think the media treated her as such.
Essentially, her idea that this was going to be something of a cakewalk to the nomination was pretty much accepted by the news media at that time.
The biggest American political story in modern times if Obama wins the Iowa caucuses.
Then the campaign rolled into Iowa, and the media mishaps kept on coming.
She loses, he wins, and suddenly she goes from being the inevitable candidate fundamentally to can she survive another week or two? And when it came to New Hampshire, the polling data up to the very end, which showed a significant Obama victory, it didn't happen. Clinton won.
I think there's a consistent narrative in this race of the media getting it wrong on all fronts. This race, the twists and turns, all of them have surprised just about everybody. Nobody's really gotten this right.
And it hasn't been for a lack of trying. Whereas last year, the biggest story in the U.S. media was the war in Iraq and the debate in Washington over the war, this year, it's all about the election.
The U.S. media machine wants you to believe that you should not be interested in anything else except the election. I mean, this is a media circus dominating the news, and the world has taken interest.
I mean, in terms of media coverage, it is the story that has sucked all the oxygen out of the room, so to speak. No other story came close to it in terms of matching the level of intensity or coverage. If you measure now, in the beginning of the year, sort of coverage of the presidential campaign against coverage of the war in Iraq, you'll find 9 times as much coverage of the campaign. So it has completely dwarfed really any other story, event, narrative, theme that's been in the American news media since the beginning of January 2008.
So how did the media get such a big story so wrong so often? Partly because traditional news outlets failed to foresee or grasp the enormous impact that new media would have on the Obama campaign.
What the historians of this campaign will write about is that Obama may have been more successful than any other candidate in using the internet as a fundraising and organizing tool.
I got in this race.
Their campaign was, and their candidate was someone who was new, perceived as younger and more energetic. There was a lot of new media that came to it. People wrote songs riffing off his speeches. There wasn't a lot of that with the Clinton campaign. There were the silent screen stars who couldn't make the transition to talkies. And there's a little bit of truth to that, I think.
They spent much too much time focusing on the talking head shows, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, and not really thinking about how they could use the media to reach out to the people that they really wanted to get, both in those small outlets and online. And I think if they had thought about that in a really serious way from the beginning, this campaign could have had a different outcome.
Another theme to emerge from the coverage was the accusation of sexism against the media in their coverage of the female candidate. There were many instances of that, but did it affect the outcome?
And when Hillary Clinton speaks, men hear, "Take out the garbage."
When I've looked on the web and seen so many things about very sexist coverage of Hillary Clinton, that I think that can't help but play into what people think about a person.
When she raises her voice, and when a lot of women do, you know, it's, as I say, it reaches a point where every husband in America has heard it one time or another.
It sends a message to people that, you know, perhaps this isn't the best person to be the president of the United States, somebody who doesn't deserve our respect.
The Clinton campaign will say that there has been a sort of a anti-woman backlash against their campaign, and you definitely saw some of that. But was that the thing that prevented her from becoming the nominee? I don't think so.
And as to the issue of overall fairness, what I can say empirically is that we released a study last week of, again, the first 3 months of 2008, the heart of the campaign season, and we found that essentially Obama's coverage and Clinton's coverage were almost identical in tone, in terms of positive versus negative. And that, frankly, as time went on, Obama's narrative actually got worse.
Obama has received mostly favorable coverage overseas. The German paper Frankfurter Allgemeine warned its readers that Obama has been elevated to a savior of mankind, a kind of political messiah of the early 21st century, expectations that will be impossible to fulfill. While the French paper Le Figaro welcomed the Obama phenomenon, especially, it said, in this era of rampant anti-Americanism. With Obama, a certain idea of America is back, that of a generous society where equality of opportunity is not an empty promise.
The Palestinian resistance movement Hamas slammed a speech by Democratic presidential candidate Barack Obama, saying it confirmed U.S. hostility to the Muslims.
Middle Eastern media, which had been kind to Barack Obama, changed their tune recently when Obama met with AIPAC, the influential pro-Israeli lobby group, and told AIPAC's annual conference that Jerusalem must remain the undivided capital of Israel.
The Arab media had a field day, and they were reminding the readers, the viewers, that there is no change. Don't be misled by Barack because of his African origins. He's not going to change American policy towards Israel. America will remain a strong ally and a strong supporter of Israel, no matter who is in the White House.
And whoever gets to the White House, be it Barack Obama or John McCain, has another 6 months of campaigning left, 6 more months of media coverage to endure in what is the biggest story of 2008. Our Global Village Voices now with their take on the media and the race for the White House.
The American news media was tired of Hillary and her husband Bill and all their scandals and the fact that they felt that they were entitled to the presidency. So the American news media dumped them and they propped up Obama for a couple of reasons. Number one, because they did not want Hillary and Bill back into the White House. And number two, because they wanted to see a black American as president of these here United States. Now, the issue here is, as far as the American people are concerned, we don't care the color or the gender or the race of the person as long as they're qualified, but not the American news media. The American news media has a left-wing agenda which is based on political correctness. Okay, see you.
I think that a lot of sexist and racist ideology still does exist within our country, and the media, while we may look at it and say, oh, there are this is a sexist ideology that's coming across through this program. In a lot of ways, I think that what the media are doing are basically just reflecting back some of the opinions that exist within people, the people that watch the programs that are being aired.
We're always open to direct on-air feedback from our viewers on the state of the news media. Just email us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net and we'll find a way to get you on the air as one of our Global Village voices. Our News Bite section this week begins with the news of 2 journalists murdered, both of whom worked for the British Broadcasting Corporation. Abdul Samad Rohani was found dead one day after being kidnapped in the Helmand province of Afghanistan. He had been shot in the head, his body dumped in a cemetery. The BBC paid tribute to Rohani, saying his bravery and dedication were a key part of the BBC's coverage in Afghanistan. And Naste Dahir, a Somali who worked for the BBC as well as the Associated Press, was shot and killed outside his home in the southern part of the country. Islamist rebels are suspected of carrying out the attack. Somalia is among the world's most dangerous countries for journalists. Amnesty International says Dahir is the 10th reporter killed there in the last 16 months. There's continuing media fallout in Myanmar, the country formerly known as Burma, in the aftermath of Cyclone Nargis. Irrawaddy, a dissident magazine published in neighboring Thailand, is reporting that Myanmar authorities are cracking down on electronic shops selling satellite dishes. The magazine says the government is out to stop its citizens from using the dishes to watch news coverage of the cyclone from abroad. And Mizima, a website specializing in news from Myanmar, says that police are also honing in on citizens who have shot their own video of the damage the cyclone did. 2 weeks ago on the Listening Post, we showed you some of those DVD merchants selling some videos to our reporter there.
Can we make $50 3 tapes?
No problem. He can do for yes.
Okay.
ETA, the Basque group seeking independence, has been attacking Spanish targets over the past 40 years. Now, for the first time, it has targeted a media outlet. ETA went after El Correro, a Madrid-based right-wing newspaper. The group attacked the printing press that El Correro uses in the city of Bilbao. The newspaper's editor, Juan Carlos Martinez, vowed that publication would continue, that the bombing would have absolutely no effect on El Correro's editorial policies. France's best-known newsreader has been toppled from his set by a younger woman, and the French media say the story has President Nicolas Sarkozy's fingerprints all over it. Patrick Poivre d'Arvor was such an institution in France, he was known by his initials, PPDA. The 60-year-old has lost his job at TF1 to Laurence Ferrari. The 41-year-old Ferrari has been voted France's most glamorous journalist, and last year she took several French magazines to court for claiming that she had had an affair with Monsieur Sarkozy. Sarkozy is good friends with TF1's biggest shareholder. Our favorite headline on this story came from the French newspaper Libération. It read, "Industrial accident at TF1, PPDA knocked over by a Ferrari." Coming up after the break, the authorities in Afghanistan out to take Indian soap operas off the air.